Russia is now giving Iran not just general, but specific advice on drone tactics against the United States. How concerned should we be about that? I mean, what should the U.S. be doing about that?
Well, greatly concerned, but not at all surprised. This should not come as a shock to anyone. The alliance between Russia and Iran has always been very close, and it's become crucially important to Russia over the last few years based upon their isolation from the rest of the world as a result of their unprovoked attack on Ukraine. So, Russia depends on Iran. Russia is using Iranian military hardware, drones, all sorts of things to support their war effort in in Ukraine. They are not going to risk that relationship now. And all of a sudden, the tables have turned. They have something they can offer the Iranians, which is the benefit of their expertise and targeting capacity from their time targeting Ukrainians. It should not be a surprise that they are offering that intelligence to our enemy, because the Russians owe us nothing. We are not friends with the Russians. They are a perennial existential threat. And so we should not be surprised to see them lining up against us.
We do have exclusive new reporting about the close partnership between Iran and Russia, something that is now potentially putting U.S. service members at risk in this region. Our Nick Payton-Walsh joins me now from Jordan with exclusive new reporting. And Nick, what more are you learning about this?
Yeah, we've known for a number of days that US officials suspected Russia was providing general information assistance to Iran, the locations of US bases, etc. But one Western intelligence official I've spoken to has gone a little bit further in terms of the granular kind of advice the Russians are giving. And to some degree, I think it would be chilling for US forces to learn of this. Now, they say that while at the start, it seemed to be general assistance, they're now concerned at the fact that it now appears to be targeting strategies that Russia has learned in Ukraine that they're now giving to Iran. Now, that's key, because what we've seen over the past days, Erin, is obviously some of the low-cost drones that Iran's been firing, the Shahids, getting across the region and penetrating air defences in the Gulf, hitting potentially US targets as well. It's been a real threat. Now, what it turns out now this official believes is happening is that all the battlefield knowledge that Russians have had over the past 3 years, and they didn't specify precisely their concern, but this is what Russians have basically learned, is how to get through Ukrainian air defences if they launch these waves of drones en masse. Sometimes Ukraine's subjected to 1,000 in one particular night. Now, the Ukrainians have been constantly adapting to Russia's new tactics. I've seen Russian drones fly in huge waves, turn suddenly a different angle, go in loops, anything to avoid air defense. And Ukraine has suddenly come up over the recent months with very cheap, small $2,000 interceptors that they can fire to take out these $30,000 drones. A very cost-effective way of doing it. I think the concern here is that if all that 3 years worth of battlefield knowledge and the constant evolution of technology is given to the Iranians in one go, it gives them a competitive edge, potentially. And I think we've also heard from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. He said that Russia's been supplying drones, missiles, and indeed the Ukrainians have sent their own experts and technology to Gulf countries, including here, Jordan, where just before you and I were talking, probably when you were hearing sirens, we heard sirens too. My colleague Natalie Wright saw two what looked like interceptions behind me over here. So a clear threat to around the region, but I think it will be chilling for US troops in the Gulf to learn potentially that we're seeing all that Russian wealth of experience from the battlefields in Ukraine being handed to the Iranians. A quick reminder, the US gave intelligence and weapons to Ukraine since the start of Russia's invasion, so perhaps Moscow see this as a tit for tat. They didn't reply to our request for comment. Erin?
Yeah. All right, Nick Payton-Walsh, thank you very much. And, just incredible when Nick describes and seeing himself, right, those swarms of drones and how they behave. I want to bring in Michael Allen, the former special assistant to President George W. Bush for national security, joining me now, along with the former senior director for counterproliferation at the National Security Council. And I appreciate your time very much. So I just want to start off with Nick Payton-Walsh's reporting, because obviously it's hugely significant, right, if you do have Russia sharing that know-how. It comes in the context of the reporting that Russia had been sharing targeting information with the Iranians. And then on top of that, Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, said yesterday that, Russian officials, Putin had had that call with Trump, and it was conveyed to Trump that Russia has not been sharing intelligence on the location of U.S. military assets. And he said in an interview that they would take Russia at its word. What's your response to that?
Yeah. Well, I think people should recognize that Russia is basically an adversary of the United States. Even if President Trump is trying to, as he said in his national security strategy, have a workable relationship with them, they are against our interests all over the globe, of course in Ukraine, but also now in Iran as well. So we should be very worried if they're supplying any intelligence to the Iranians. But it's part of the, and you've heard this term, the axis of upheaval. It's North Korea, China, Iran, and Russia working together. They're bound by a common opposition to the United States, the West, and democracy. So we have to watch them very, very closely and discourage them strongly from doing this.
Right. And obviously, at least all we have from the administration is their public posturing, which is trusting Russia and taking it at its word. That's the public perception that they're putting out there. We also have the new reporting that I just had mentioned, and I want to give you the detail about it, Michael, which is that an IRGC commander, and this is, I guess we're trying to figure out the line between what is real and what is perhaps just a threat or hyperbole. And this is the context of these missiles, they say, these underwater launched missiles that they say are high speed and deadly, that Iran has not yet used, and that only CNN understands that they're saying they and Russia have. Do you take that as more than just an empty threat?
I do. I have heard of these particular weapons that the Russians had. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they had been proliferated to the Iranians and to others that they make common cause with around the world. This would be an extraordinarily dangerous development. We should be worried about it. I think that the U.S. Navy and others have probably been working on countermeasures for many years because, as I recall, this capability that the Russians have has been known to the United States for some time. But we should take it very, very seriously. It's another reason why, we may not be ready to get our warships in the Straits of Hormuz right now, where they might be at a period of maximum vulnerability. I think the position probably of the Navy is that they need to spend more time eliminating some of these conventional weapons capabilities on the shore and inside of Iran proper, so that we might be able to more freely operate. But this is what's happened as the war is escalating, and we've got to be on our toes as we move forward.
Well, obviously also hugely significant, the perspective you're providing on that, because, we hear about all the things that the U.S. and Israeli forces say they've destroyed, whether that be missile launchers, missile sites, missile manufacturing, drone, all of those things. But these capabilities are different, obviously, just to make that point loud and clear.